Okay, welcome to the faculty forum. We have 3 candidates today that are going to talk to you about the platform and about who they would like to be the next president of the faculty. It is being recorded today, and this recording will be posted on the Faculty Senate website, as well as being sent out with the ballot when it's sent out later today. So if you know anyone that would also like to watch the video, they're welcome to do that. So I'm going to start it off today with your first question. I'm just going to have whoever wants to go first can go first. Introduce yourself. Tell us what department you work in and a little bit about your experiences here at ESU.
Anyone else want to start?
Oh, no, please go ahead.
Okay. So my name is Brenda Kerner. I'm an associate professor in the biological sciences department. My background here at ESU, I've been here for, I believe, 13 years. It's kind of hard to believe it's been that long. And I've served on Senate for a year or 1.5 terms, so 3 years, and have been chair of academic affairs. And what else was there?
I think that's good.
Okay. So that's a little bit about my background.
My name is Sean Keogh. I'm in the School of Business. I'm an associate professor. I've been here 5 years. I stepped into the department chair position my 2nd year here as an assistant professor. And don't ever do that. I've been on a lot of different committees. That was one of the really nice things about being the department chair. I was forced literally to have relationships across campus, and that opened my eyes quite a bit to the need for us to be able to build bridges across campus into other disciplines, because I felt like that was, and I still feel like that's one of the things that we don't do very well on this campus.
And hello there, I am Sonia Ezel, and I'm with the Teachers College. I have previously served as a senator representing the individuals and the voices of the Teachers College. I've had the pleasure of serving and teaching both graduate and undergraduate courses within the department. And I've been here for 7 years, and I have enjoyed it. And I think in terms of reaching the tenure process, going through it, it's given me the opportunity to serve on a host of committees, to get out into the community and to do volunteer work within the community. I'm a big advocate for early literacy and working with the Read to Your Bunny program, writing grants, and I think I am firmly committed to ensuring a fair representation for faculty members and staff, and also ensuring, and that's in terms of being a teacher, that the students have a great experience while they're here.
Thank you. The next question is, why are you interested in becoming the president of the faculty here at ESU?
Okay. Well, I was approached and prodded to pursue this position, but I think it was something that I had to think seriously about before committing, because of the duties that are involved and the time commitment that's involved, on top of the regular duties as a faculty member. So I kind of looked at what my sort of informal 5-year plan was, and I was thinking, okay, this is actually a time when I could potentially do this. One of the reasons that I decided to pursue this position is because I think the role as president of the faculty is a really important one, and the role of Senate is really important here at ESU. I think we're in a unique position here at ESU compared to other faculty senates at other universities, because we have the opportunity to create policy, which we don't have, or which most faculty senates at other universities don't have. And I think that comes with a lot of responsibility to create really meaningful and useful policy. I don't have particularly any policies that I want to pursue. And I don't think that that's really the role of president of the faculty. As president of the faculty, I believe you are an advocate for the faculty. So it is the faculty's responsibility to present any issues that they think need to be addressed. And it's the role of president of the faculty to facilitate that process. And to create meaningful change at ESU, not to create change just to create change, but to create policies that create a better work environment for faculty, that create better equality for all stakeholders at the university, and so on.
I think we're going to have a recurring theme. Because I honestly had not thought about it at all. When the nominations went out, it wasn't on my radar at all. And then several people came to me and they said, "Would you think about doing this? And could you?" And I was in the same boat that I had not thought about it. And I went, "Well, I don't know. How does that fit in with what I want to do and how what my personal goals were too?" Because it's an extremely important position, and I agree. I absolutely, this is horrible. Following you is impossible. I've been at other universities where the faculty senate was a mouthpiece, and that was it. It did nothing. Whereas here it makes a difference. You can make policy. The president listens. So it's not just something that you do and put on your vita. It's actually meaningful. And I don't necessarily have, and I would agree that our role is to make sure that the faculty voice is heard, and ultimately the things that we do are beneficial to our students. And the only thing that I would say that maybe I could say this is an agenda item would be, and I read the paper yesterday, the bulletin, and there's the front page that says only 9 people attended ASG senatorial debate. And that depresses me. And I look at this room, and actually I'm very impressed today, because the last 2 that I went to, there were less than 5 people in the room, and that's counting the people that were behind the table, and that's just depressing to me. So that's one thing that I would want to push, and I pulled the numbers for the responses. Second vice president, spring of 18, about 40% response rate to even vote. 17, 43%, and because we actually had 2. So in February of 17, 42%. 16, 27%. This is the number of people who actually voted. So, I mean, for me, that's just depressing. And so I would want people to be more involved, because if we're not involved, and I think there's a direct correlation between our involvement and these students' involvement. So that would be the one thing that I would absolutely want, and I know that the other people behind this table, they're shaking their heads, and I know, and from what you said earlier, that all of us want more participation, that this is important. It's important, but I'll end there.
Okay. I would say that I'm running because I'm committed to others. And I'm also a great listener. And it's with the listening that I begin to hear the stories and narratives of others. And I also consider myself to be one of an advocate. And I like to speak for or to share the experiences of others. And I think this provides you with an opportunity to see that this is a wonderful institution. And in terms of being here, that there is room for growth and for change and for the inclusion of everyone, to feel as if that if I want to participate, if I want to be active, if I want to be involved, I can do so. And so I take away from fellow faculty members and staff members and students that I like it here. And they've shared with me parts of their journey. And in doing so, I would like to be able to raise both of what they found positive and as an opportunity, and some things they're saying, I wonder if there could be a little bit of a expansion within the system to consider these other perspectives or thoughts as we move forward. And so I'm here, I think, to be of service to others, and that's how I see myself.
So we'll open it up to the floor and after our questions.
Brenda, I'll start with you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. But I know you. I mean,
Yeah.
I served on AEC with you, and I know how hard we did work that
Mhm.
year. So you've been on Senate Exec, you've been a chair of a committee, you served full term, and so I think you have a pretty good idea of what's involved in Senate as a faculty member, as a senator, as committee chair, and all of that. So my question for all of you, so you'll know you're not left out, is what are the greatest challenges do you foresee? And what I mean by that, really, I'll give you an example. Like when you have to make those tough decisions, when maybe there's disagreement, you can't seem to reach a consensus. Because I know you have experience in this already, how do you think you would respond, or what do you foresee as the challenges, and how would you respond?
I think really the key is effective communication between all of the stakeholders involved, all of the opposing viewpoints, and trying to bring people to a compromise. And I think that's something, I mean, kind of the political climate that we're in lately, we don't see much compromise. And I think compromise is essential. And so I think you're never going to get 100% agreement on all issues. I've brought bills forward to full Senate that I personally did not vote on, but it's not my job as a chair. It wouldn't be my job as president of the faculty to only bring things forward that I approve of. It's my job as president of the faculty, and it was my job as academic affairs chair to give those issues a voice, to make them as clean as possible and give them a voice and let the debate proceed. Whatever way that the chips fall, they fall. I've brought bills forward that I've felt strongly about. I've brought bills forward that I did not vote on because I thought there were problems with it. But it was my job as a committee chair to let that bill have a voice. Let the stakeholders who thought that that issue was important to have that issue aired within the realm of Faculty Senate. And I'm hoping that the way to increase participation in that process is to sort of be a good steward of the Faculty Senate process and sort of lead by example, to bring things forward that the faculty find important.
Thank you, Brenda. Sean and Sonia, or whichever way.
Well, if you guys go first, I get to feed off of it.
Right.
All right. I think the biggest challenge is going to be making sure that everybody gives their input, because too many times I hear complaints after the fact that a decision has been made, that a bill is passed, and people go, "Oh, this bill, I didn't even know this was being discussed." And so that goes back to the communication, that how do we make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on and that their voice can be heard. And too many people, and I walked around and I asked some people about these response rates, and they said, well, you know, in the past, the Senate went through some tough times to where they weren't listened to, and there was suspicion about administration, and then there were issues of some people that were maybe misusing their powers in Senate, and that a large number of faculty got disgruntled. And they said, well, my voice doesn't matter anymore. And we started getting some apathy that, well, I'm not even going to talk about it. So I think that we've got to break that. We have to, that's to me the biggest challenge, to say, look, this is your forum. This is for you and junior faculty. I think that's what we're missing the boat big time on getting junior faculty up to speed on what Faculty Senate actually means. They don't understand. We need to have, and again, I've talked to some senior faculty, and they said, we need to force them, not in a bad way, but to introduce them to, hey, this is what it means to be a faculty member. This is what it means to be on Faculty Senate. And we need to guide them. And it seems like that's, several senior faculty said, and it's our fault. I mean, they specifically said, and it's our fault. We're not doing a good job with it, but we're also expected to do all these other things, and it's very hard to do the mentoring that we need. So I think that's to me, that's the biggest challenge, is to make everybody comfortable that says, hey, I do have a voice, and my voice matters, and they're going to actually take my opinions into consideration.
Okay. I think in terms of the greatest challenge or opportunities, how I would frame it, is that we lay true to the concept of being an adaptive university, and that we're willing to allow for voices, varied voices. And I think the voices in terms of those who tend to be in consent, but we also allow for the voices who might speak for the view, for those voices to come forth, to be heard, to allow the discussion to take place so that everyone feels as if that they are heard. And I think, though, in terms of being adaptive, that we allow for and realize that transformation, that it's ongoing, that it's daily. And so we're never at a point where, okay, here we've made it though, but we're seeking that ongoing change. That change is not static, but that it takes place over time. And in order for it to take place over time, we're willing to sit down, to listen, to converse, and to reach an understanding of other people, and then to create a plan in terms of how can we move forward? What can we do? What's in the best interest of all stakeholders here on campus?
Okay. I have a question for you. Not only does the faculty president represent faculty here on campus, but you also attend all the Regents meetings. And so I'm interested in your view of how you view you as representing employee state with the Board of Regents and the Council of Faculty Presidents. And we'll start at the other end of this conversation.
I can follow.
I think in terms of representing ESU, I think I would be a great representative. I happen to love and adore the institution. I think we're doing a lot of wonderful things, and to speak on behalf for fellow faculty members and staff and for the students, that we're doing a lot of great things. I would love to share that with others. To me, I feel as if I already do that. Whenever I travel to a conference, right there, you talk about the great things that we're doing within our Teachers College, though. And so to me, it would just be an onflow, an ongoing effort in terms of promoting, to me, a place where I think that learning and really preparing students and being able to receive input from your fellow faculty members is something that I already talk about and brag about. So I would just continue to do those things.
That one's a little more difficult. I think that it's just a more, for me, it would be just a more elevated level of what I do right now. I mean, when I It's like at Rebels. I went in Country Mart. I was in Country Mart last night, and one of my students is checking. They're like, "Oh, hey, Doctor," and they didn't recognize me because I wasn't in my I wasn't in my costume, right? And they went, "Oh my gosh, you wear jeans," right? But we don't ever get away. I mean, so at a certain level, none of us ever get away from that. That we're representative regardless. Every time we're in front of the classroom, we're a representative outside, and people know people know who we are. So I think that it's more just an elevation, and I think the bigger difference here is we really have to put aside our own our personal stakes, because when we're representing Emporia State at that level, even if we disagree with what's being presented to us, we have to be able to compartmentalize that and say, what has the university decided is best? And I think that could be difficult for some people to be able to compartmentalize. I don't generally have that level of trouble compartmentalizing because when I was in the military, I was in intelligence. Nobody knew what I did. So what I did at work had to stay at work. And when I went out into having a good time, if people ask me, well, what do you do at work? Well, that conversation had to stop because I couldn't tell people. So I think that when we represent Emporia State, and I think in most cases, I'm going to be in agreement because I love this job. I love this institution. It's an awesome place to be. And I got my master's degree here, and I came back, and because it suits my personality. So that's what I think that we have to be able to do when we represent Emporia State, to recognize, hey, we are Emporia State when we're out and about. We have to be really careful about our actions.
Okay, sort of feed on that, the anonymity portion out in the community. This is why I'm on sabbatical in another state. I haven't been anonymous for 13 years. But in all seriousness, I think that the role of faculty senate president in the KBOR environment is to really be an advocate for ESU and try to promote ESU, highlight the great things that we do, and advocate our position as a faculty, because my job would be to represent the faculty, not myself. And if there are policies that KBOR is discussing that might be detrimental to the faculty here at ESU, it would be my job to speak against that and to represent the faculty. And vice versa, to highlight the great things that we do and why we are unique and special. I mean, I've been here for quite a while now. Obviously, it's a great place to be. It's kind of the Goldilocks of the universities, and the types of universities, and that's what I love about it. I have the ability to do some pretty meaningful research, but also I get to teach, and teaching is our #1 job here. And I think it's good to remind people that that is our job. We are educators, and education is incredibly important, and funding for education is incredibly important. I just saw an article, I think it was this weekend, how the general public believes that we have not had any cuts in our budget, whereas that is not what is really happening in the university system, state-funded universities. the amount of funding that we get from the state has dropped. And I don't know if there's ever a way to recover that, but I think it's important to not just advocate to KBOR that we need to maintain these budgets. They're really important. You can only go so bare bones, and you're going to have to start taking away flesh. And so I think it's really important to state that we are there. And if they expect more, then they have to provide the support for more. And to make the general, also to make the public aware that we are already, we've gotten rid of all the fat. So the only way, if state budgets get cut more, the state funding that we receive gets cut more, we can't, that money has to come from somewhere. That's why tuition increases. And I don't think the majority of the populace understands that that is what is happening. And I think that's an important message to portray moving forward.
First of all, kudos to each of you for great run. And you're correct, ESU has more of a truly shared governance than the other universities, and continues to have, which is
Yes.
good to continue to advocate for and keep it. The year you will be president is, my math right, 2020 to 2021?
I think it might.
Whatever. Something, yeah, because
21, 22, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, 2 years away, but
Mhm.
on the horizon,
Yeah.
maybe including some things you've already said, what are the 3 major issues that you think will be, that need to be addressed during your presidency?
So, like I just said, I think funding is important. Support for faculty to be able to do what we do. So, travel support, research support. We're not a Research One institution, so we don't have the schedules to necessarily pursue multi-million-dollar grants on a regular basis. It happens, and it can happen. I mean, I personally have external grant funding, but it's out of my hide, for the most part. But I'm able to do wonderful things for students. And I think also advocating for support for student opportunities too, funding for opportunities for research, for travel for students, for extraneous activities that help support their education, that are not part of typical classroom activities. And it's really hard. I mean, none of us are fortune tellers. We don't know what challenges are going to come up in the next 3 years. And I'm sure there's always fires to put out. And whatever those fires are, that's probably going to take the forefront. But, it's hard to know what those things are. But I think probably funding support and support for programs that we have and for new programs is also extremely important. Because, as being an adaptive university, innovation and change are important. And that's part of our strategic plan. And I think as Faculty Senate, we have a unique position to support policies that encourage innovation at the university level.
Easy follow on. Funding. I will put, no, you stated that fairly clearly. I mean, funding is always going to be an issue. One of the things that I see in and it may be full bore in 3 years, that KBOR's review of existing programs and looking at them and saying, we're sorry, but these programs that you have, they just aren't efficient. That you need to do something with those programs, either eliminate them or find some other way to offer that curriculum at a lower price. I see lots of streamlining, and I see it. If we don't do it ourselves, I see KBOR coming down and saying, we will force you to do it. And that may mean that only K-State is going to offer this particular degree program, and we're going to be completely cut out of that. I mean, and I think that would be a major blow for some of the programs that we have here that we consider good programs, but by a quantitative metric, KBOR could say, oh, we just don't think that that's viable anymore. So I think that's going to be a major consideration that we're going to have to prepare for now. And that's not something that we have to wait for 3 years. I think online curriculum, I think that is something that we're going to start seeing a lot more push on. I think KBOR is going to it's going to be about streamlining, and it's going to be about efficiencies, and we're going to start seeing some policies. And unless we get ahead of the game on that, and we actually are. I mean, the Senate is actually looking at the last meeting they were talking about online.
Yeah, that came.
So,
yeah, we were
I mean, it came up, and it's something that people are working on. But how long does it take to get those? Probably 3 years for something like that to come through. So I see online curriculum becoming a big deal too, that KBOR is going to start really looking at. And then just changes to the curriculum in general. I know I'm not completely tied in with this, but all the articulation agreements with community colleges, the changes in our expectation, how many are they going to allow to come in and transfer, and I don't know where that's going to go, because that's something even KBOR, they don't know what's going on with it. They're just, and what was the pilot between, because it was at the last Senate meeting that they talked about the pilot, Johnson Community College and KU.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are things that we have that are coming. They're looming right in front of us right now, that it's going to be full in our face in 3 years.
Thank you for the question. I noted in terms of like the top issues, I would say is, I think, fair market-based compensation for faculty and staff. I think that's very crucial. I also think that access to needed resources for faculty and staff to support teaching, research, and scholarship that's needed, so that we can have a robust curriculum, and so that we're able to support student learning in some new ways. So we need resources and funding for that. And I think also supporting initiatives to ensure ongoing growth for ESU is vital. So those are 3 things that ring true to me for being kind of out there as the top.
Okay.
This is a follow-up to what you did.
Okay.
So you'll be on the tuition and budget committee. You'll have to cast votes about how much to raise tuition, how much to raise fees. And let's assume that the past trends is similar to the future. They may not be, but let's just assume they are for sake of your response. And that state funding continues either flat or dwindling. Give us some idea of your perspective on those votes about raising tuition, that other element of how we raise funds.
I think it's important to just have conversations as to if it's necessary, let's say it's flatlined and our costs increase because cost of supplies and operation increases over time. I think it's important, all of us, I think, hate to put this on the backs of the students. But when you're up against the wall, you may not have any other option. If there is a way to find funding outside of putting it on the backs of students, I think it's worthwhile. And obviously, as faculty senate president, you're not the budget officer. You don't know exactly where all the money is and where it's going. But I think, we have trust in that, in the person in that position, that they're doing everything that they can with what they have available and getting the biggest bang for their buck. And I think it's important. Usually it's discussing with students why this is occurring, and parents and the general public. So we're not increasing tuition because we want to. We're increasing tuition because we have to. And that's a different conversation than all faculty just want some raises, which would be wonderful, but that's really not where tuition increases really go. It's just to maintain the level of education that we had before. It's just to maintain the status quo.
Well, I would agree with, in the role of our position, we were going to have a single vote. It's not, we're not the determining factor. So in our individual role, we have to look at each of those items and say, okay, does this make sense? Is this absolutely necessary? And of course, we have to get input from other people. We have to talk to other people and go, okay, here's some of the line items that are on here. We have that conversation with the people that are suggesting it and say, is this really necessary? And that's where our vote should be directed. It should be, again, it's one vote. But we have to have an informed vote, that we have to talk to those people and say, is this really necessary? And in most cases, it's not going to be coming before that committee unless somebody thinks it's necessary, because we're in a tight situation financially, that when the state says, okay, we're reducing your budget by $300,000. Okay, that doesn't sound like much to an average person, but for an institution, well, that could be a program, or that's a lot of faculty lines that potentially you could be losing. So I think we have to assume the responsibility to pull all the information so that we can make a good, responsible decision for just our vote. Because again, we don't get to make that. We don't make that call. I mean, if we were the president, okay, maybe, but even then, the president doesn't get to make that call. We're just an input. But that's hard, because every year I think every year we're going to be faced with exactly that. That there are going to be requests to increase.
Okay, I would say I agree. And in terms of stabilizing tuition dollars, you do want to be careful that you're not upping the price. But in terms of doing that, how can we offset that with ensuring we're doing things like increasing enrollment? So we're selling ESU. It's a great university. And how can we use that increased enrollment to offset maybe a potential and a spike within those tuition dollars? Also, giving faculty and others and staff to make sure that we're able to apply for those federal and state dollars that we can bring in and maybe offer as scholarships or to offset some program costs, so that we can weigh in and try to keep an even line regarding, soaring cost though. So I think it's just being proactive in so many different areas so that we don't have to tap into or pull up those tuition dollars. So I would look at that.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up to that, but also a question I have. First of all, talking about online programs, Rich House Unified has been online for 20 years. A long time. And much of what you're talking about is faculty morale impacted, which actually years ago you were saying, well, what are we going to do if it gets worse? And part of the distance programs and all makes not as many here, but maybe they'll watch it on there as far as today. But something that has come up and several of us have talked about is equal pay, gender equal pay, which I've been told just keep bringing it up. So I'm bringing it up. And I'll be of here before anything happens, but just having a study, and I know how involved that can be in terms of not only, and you can look at the base salary, because there's additional things, summer pay, they have sites that have all the universities,
Mhm.
and most of them are unequal pay.
Mhm.
Now, I think there was one, I'm not sure, something like that. But anyway, what I keep hearing, because a study was going to be done,
Mhm.
and then there was this whole across the board raise, which
Mhm.
didn't really keep up with. But what do you think about that, and what do we do to at least know? I keep saying, if it's a problem, it's identified and figure out what to do. If it's not, let's what a recruitment tool that would be effective. To say, hey, we pay our males and females the same, but based on their performance. No, well, then you need to do the But I'm just saying the study, some kind of, get into it and tell us what it is, because I don't know, I know of examples across campus that many have shared, but I don't know. There's many variables.
Yeah.
Let me piggyback on that for
Okay.
just a second. The AUP publishes that information for every university every year that submits the information that they do. There's a significant disparity between male and female compensation at each of the ranks of the issues. And so, echoing what Carol said, what are we going to do about a study here? That's the essence of your question.
Yes.
What do you do?
With more factors than just gender.
Yes.
Do you want me to go
salary
first?
version.
Sure. You haven't gone
I haven't
first
gone
yet.
first at all.
Yeah, go first.
And I'll go first because I'm a human resource person. That's my background. And I just talked about this in class, in my HR class. We were talking about disparity, and it depends on what part of the country you're in. There are actually certain parts of the country that they've done these studies that women make more than men. The Midwest, sadly, is not one of those areas. It's actually one of the worst areas. So, I mean, and regardless of if either of my esteemed colleagues becomes Senate president, I would absolutely want to work on that. I would want to be, so keep that in mind when I lose, that we have to, because it could be, what a great recruiting tool, and what a great morale builder for people here, because people here look and they go, oh, well, I'm getting paid less than my male counterparts, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. But if we have that data that's right there, and it has to be transparent, everybody has to have access to it. And it has to, exactly what you're suggesting, it has to break out what is your base salary versus, okay, you're doing overloads, you're doing summer teaching, you're getting additional stipends because you do internships, or you're doing independent studies and all ESERPs. And because there are a lot of other ways that you can boost your salary. And that's what I would want to break out too, and not just male, female. Not just male, female, because it has to be based on your rank. It has to be based on the time in service, all kinds of other factors. So I think absolutely we need something like that, because it serves multiple purposes. One, internal morale. And if we find that disparity, then we can address it. If we don't check it and find, and we cannot depend on that external survey. We just can't, because that's summarizing everybody. It's no good. I mean, yes, it's going to give us a broad picture. They go, ooh, there's a problem somewhere, but is it within our institution? Because maybe we're the outlier. So I think that it should be done. It's just a matter of figuring out how you do it. And because all of that information isn't transparent. I mean, basically all we get is the bottom line number, because I've been to the website, I've looked at it. And when I look, and Dr. Derler's point is well taken. When I look at it and I say, wow, Dr. Derler is getting paid significantly less than his counterpart that's doing the same thing. Well, I don't know. Are they doing the same thing? Maybe they're teaching 2 summer classes and he's not. Maybe so. But just having that data would be very helpful, and for recruiting. It could be great for recruiting.
But HR has that data.
Yes, and I don't know if they would say, oh, sorry, that's protected data. I don't know. I don't know. It seems like that would be fairly easy to dig up if it's and it should be, because we're a public institution. It should be, but it would be breaking it out. That's the difficult part, and finding somebody that's interested in breaking it out.
I think in terms of gathering some of that initial data, though, we could do like a survey, like we do the climate survey, and that would give us an initial starting place to see why do we have these meaningful differences. And then as we take that data, let's drill down a little bit deeper and maybe see, do we have an issue regarding maybe opportunities, and maybe some have them and some don't. And why do we have that maybe unequal access to opportunities, and how does that impact pay? Why is it that maybe pay for participating within or doing certain duties are compensated more and others are compensated less? So I think let's first get in the data and let's flesh it out, and then let's see what does it tell us about opportunity, who's making the decisions regarding the pay for these varied experiences. And so I do think we have a starting point, and I do think that we have a way to start addressing what people are perceiving as experiences that are mixed. And for some individuals are on the high end of it, but for some are on the low end. And how can we get to that so that we're all here at ESU and it's for the common good of everyone who's here?
I think it would be a great study to have done here at ESU. And I do think it's possible because our salaries are public data. I can go, if I really wanted to, I could go and look up every single one of your salaries. But I do think it's a really important thing to have done, and again, it comes down to funding. Is this something that would go out to a consultant? What would be the cost of doing this? But I think it would be a worthwhile expenditure to pursue. And I think what also sort of complicates the matter is salary compression that has occurred over time for about the past 10 years. So that's another complicating factor in there. Right about the time that I started is about the time that merit pay disappeared. So how that how that falls into the mix too. If that ever would return, there would be differences that would be fleshed out, but I'm sure a statistician can sort of work out those variations that occur. But I think it would be a very, very informative and interesting thing to know how to ameliorate any of those issues that sort of bubble up from a study like that. Then again, that comes down to funding. It's just a really complicated issue, but I think it's one worth pursuing.
We have just a few minutes left, so I'm going to give you each just maybe a minute to kind of give a closing statement or anything you'd like to say here. And we'll start with Dr. Zuck.
Okay, thank you for attending today and to taking the time to get to know us, though. I think that right now, in terms of being at ESU, we're unfolding a plan of greatness where transformation is ongoing. We're having these collaborative conversations and discussions, and I think that we're at a place where we're inviting we're including everyone to come to the table. Let's talk. Let's create a plan. Let's create a journey forward where everyone who wants to participate who's here to seek their common good and the common good of others, they're welcomed. And so I would like to be the representative of everyone who's saying, this is the place for me, and I want to ensure that not only that I have a good journey, but that my fellow Hornets, that they also have a solid journey.
I would thank everybody too. I mean, just by showing up, you're showing initiative. You're showing I care about this whole process. And I would be happy if anybody, from what I've heard today, any individual they assume that position. I feel comfortable with each of these individuals. So I would say anybody watching this, everybody here, talk to your colleagues. Tell them, hey, watch this. Review the candidates. Go walk around and talk to people. Vote for the person that you think is the best qualified to meet your personal individual needs. If that means you don't vote for me, don't vote for me. You vote for it. But vote. Use your right to vote, because I think that's where it's got to start. So please just vote. I'd love for this number to be 90%.
I echo those sentiments. And again, I hope to be able to just facilitate the process and improve the image of Faculty Senate. I prior to serving on Faculty Senate, I was always like, oh my gosh, if I never have to serve on Faculty Senate, it will be awesome. And after serving on Senate, my opinion has changed dramatically. It's a 180. It's actually a quite enjoyable experience in many aspects. I think we get holed into our departments and our buildings, and we never leave our little circle. And Faculty Senate is a great opportunity to interact with the entirety of the campus somewhat indirectly. And I think that's a wonderful experience. And trying to communicate that Senate is worthwhile and service is worthwhile. All of us here, I'm guessing if you're here, you view service as a very important aspect of our academic duties. And I think it's worthwhile to advocate for service across campus. So.
Thank you all for attending today, and we encourage your colleagues to vote.